Winter solstice happened, which means my favorite holiday is just around the corner. Can you guess what that is? That's right, Y2K. And I figured today we're going to look at a very period-centric and important camera both to Canon and the digital world alike. And that is this, the Canon D30. So pardon the audio quality dip if there is one. I'm wandering around the corridors of the basement, testing out the D30. I have it locked up on a tripod so we can get a good sense of the detail or lack thereof. I'm using the lowest ISO possible and just letting the camera do what it wants to do. So not to be confused with the 30D, which is also an ancient and important camera in itself, this is the D30, and this came out in the year of 2000. As we know, the world didn't end then, which is good because this camera came out just a few months later. Now, before we talk about why it's so important, let's go over some of the specs of the D30. Now, first and foremost, at the front of this camera, it has a multi-pixel sensor, which was a big deal at the time, 3 whole megapixels, wrapped in a professional all-bite plastic body by Canon. It shot 3 to 8 frames per second, raw at that. And it saved images through a CF card slot. And what a treat this was to shoot back in the day, and still today. Like when you use it, it feels like everything you've come to know and love about a Canon DSLR, but just a lot more rudimentary, if you will. Now, because it's a pro body, it has an EF mount and a full frame sensor, right? Because it has to, otherwise it's not a professional camera. As we know, you can't use anything smaller than 35 millimeters to shoot for professional work. No, this is an APS-C sensor with an EF mount. The EF-S lenses didn't come along until a couple of years after this, but contrary to popular belief, you could use some crop sensor lenses with this, just not Canon's brands. Now, I've been rocking the Tokina 11 to 22, I believe it is, f2.8 crop sensor lens with it. Works very, very well, and it lightens this brick of a system in your hand. And if we look around the body, it has a subscreen just about as big as the original screen. Tactile buttons for all of your needs, because touchscreen didn't come out until like 2 decades after this. And it uses a very common Canon battery that's still easily accessible today, and they're strong. Like, I haven't charged this camera since I got it like 2 years ago. Took it in the winter, back inside. It's still charged, albeit almost dead. Still works. My gasket just fell off. I'd rather blow a head gasket on the D30 than my car, like I did. A lot cheaper of a fix. So what makes this camera so special today? Well, this was Canon's first foray into the digital world all on its own without the need of like Kodak training wheels. Meaning they made all the internals and externals themselves without the help and aid of other companies. Like notably Kodak, as I mentioned, the DCS series in collaboration with Canon came out with their digitals before. This here, however, is all Canon. And I think they did a fantastic job. But where does that leave this camera today? Again, it's only 3 megapixels, it's hardly usable, right? Wrong. In the right hands, you can produce some gems with this. It's like saying that I could do a better job at making art with the Windows 95 than Salvador Dali could with a Sharpie and a letter. That's just not true. Especially, I don't know art tools, that's just my garbage example. But in the right hands, your images can look very good even with this 3 megapixel Y2 camera. Like, I was taken aback with this when I first used it because yeah, we used 3 megapixel cameras on this channel before and I thought I knew what to expect, but I could barely even tell the files were 3 megapixels, especially when I upload them to like social media. Like compared to my Coolpix 995, these shots look usable today. And I credit a lot of this, unfortunately, as a Micro Four Thirds user, as you know, to the larger sensor. Better dynamic range than say my Nikon Coolpix. Sometimes sensor size matters, and it does here. The images are still very pleasing and they have those Canon colors we come to know and love. Like, it's crazy how similar this is to a current Canon DSLR. And it just goes to show you how far a solid foundation goes when making cameras or life alike. Like, even when you look at the menu system on this ancient camera, it still looks like a modern Canon's, albeit aged, but it's still there. It really didn't have to change a whole lot around, and this just feels a lot like a 5D in your hands when you're using it in modern time. But again, this is, at the end of the day, is a 3 megapixel sensor. Would you recommend it for use today? Of course. Of course. It's the artist, not the tools. But obviously you can only do so much with the 3 megapixel sensor, and you can do more if you know how to use it. Like if you wanted that extra resolution, you can always run stacks or brackets like I did here to pull out and squeeze a little bit more information than you otherwise would have. And just a quick note, look at the size difference between the RP and the D30. Pretty crazy. But that just goes to show you how far camera manufacturing has come since the D30 came out. Like, you can find this camera on the market for like, I don't know, sub $50 if you looked hard enough. Mine was 10, it came with a battery grip in questionable condition, and it works like a charm. Albeit, again, the gasket fell off just because it's old, but it's fixable. So if you're looking for something to dink around or want to try a relic of the past when it comes to camera manufacturing, or if you're just a geek like I am for camera history, I try out the D30. That's it for now. I just wanted to show you a cool camera that came out in a time when we didn't even know technology would work. Thank you for watching. Find me on Instagram at Matt's Notes. I love you. Happy holidays, and I'll see you next time.